Hi, I'm Dr. Mike Derry. I'm the Extension Poultry Specialist and Professor at the University of Connecticut. So the question is, am I seeing more people wanting to raise chickens in urban areas or cities and towns than in the past? Yes, over the last 10 to 15 years, there's been tremendous growth in the backyard chicken industry. One of the things in Connecticut that started things off was when New Haven passed their regulation allowing 5 hens or 6 hens in the backyard. From there, other cities and towns picked it up. But this is not just a Connecticut phenomena. This is actually occurring all across the country, and my colleagues in other states are seeing the same thing. For that reason, we're doing lots of small flock workshops to train people how to maintain those chickens in their backyard. It's not quite clear why we're seeing more of this. Part of it is because people want to know where their food's coming from, so raising chickens in the backyard for eggs is a good source of fresh eggs of known quality. And the other is because I think it's just fun. Chickens are really neat little critters. They're fun to watch. They have exciting behaviors, and it's something small enough that's livestock that someone can actually keep in an urban area. So they get a food supply and they get fun from the same thing.
He has expertise in this topic, and I think that you'll be in for a treat. My name is Albertina Baptista. I'm the Deputy Director of Health, and I'd just like to thank Beardsley Zoo for allowing us to, for hosting this for us. We really greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'll let Dr. Lewis speak.
Thank you. How you doing? How you guys doing? Yeah, thanks for clapping out, because afterwards you won't want to, that's for sure. All right, so who's here to learn how to raise chickens? Who already knows how to raise chickens? Good. I'm going to take a nap. You can come up and teach. All right, so a little bit about myself, so you know where I'm coming from. Again, I'm Dr. Mike Derry. I'm the Extension Poultry Specialist, among other things, at the University of Connecticut. I've been there for 32 years. I finished my undergrad, my master's and PhD at the University of Illinois. And I started here in Connecticut in January of 1981. Okay. How many have heard of the Cooperative Extension System? Only one. Okay. How many have heard of 4-H programs? Oh, okay. Then you've heard of Cooperative Extension. That's part of what we do. It's part of the youth part. The other part is we do outreach education, off-campus education. So I'm the poultry specialist, but we have other people that are specialists in horses, dairy cattle, nutrient management, forestry, landscape, you name it. Anything to do with any aspect of agriculture, Extension Systems at the land-grant universities has somebody there to help teach you. And here in Connecticut, how many counties do we have? We have 8 counties. How many extension offices do we have? Actually, we have 9, because we have 1 in each county and 1 at the university. So we have extension offices all over. And the regional offices, so there's one in New Haven County, there's one in Fairfield County, there's one in Litchfield County, obviously New London, Holland, Wyndham, you name it, right? So at those centers, they don't have all the expertise, but they have access to the university and the expertise we bring. Okay? So, like I say, I've been working with poultry for a lot more than 32 years, but it's changing and I'm learning something new all the time. One of the interesting things is that you guys are here tonight. 15 years ago, I didn't have that many people who would come to a small flock. I'd get a few dozen here and there, you know, occasionally. Now I do about a dozen or more small flock seminars throughout the state and New England. And I average 40 people at these seminars, most of whom want to raise some chickens in their backyard or something. The largest one I've had this year so far had 72 people. This is at a feed store up in Ellington, Connecticut. So that's good places to hold this because then you get your supplies on the way out when you pick up your baby chicks. A lot of people get their baby chicks from the feed store. Okay. So that's enough about me. The PAS just means Professional Animal Scientist. That and $1.50 gets me a Coke out of most machines. So, I mean, doesn't make a whole lot of difference. Okay, one of the things I wanted to point out is, and you have a handout on this, you probably can't read the fine print, but don't worry about it. The main thing is Yukon Poultry pages. How many of you guys go to websites? How many been on a website? Go to the web. How much did it cost you to go to that website? Whatever it costs you, buy the computer and stuff. But once you're there, it's pretty much free, isn't it? How many have heard the saying, it cost you to come here tonight? Wow, you get what you pay for. I'm just kidding. All right. So the point is that universities, when we put a website up, we vet that information. In other words, we look at it to make sure it's almost pure, as accurate as we can get it. There's nothing 100% accurate because things change. But we try to make sure it's good, accurate information. If you go to Chicken Joe's website and look for advice from Chicken Joe, whoever he may be, how do you know what he's telling you is accurate and good information? Who checked it out? Who vetted it? Who said this is the place to go, right? So, for good information on agricultural products, whether it's poultry, whether it's beef, whether it's raising tomatoes or plants, anything like that, go to university websites first, because they will usually have some information. If you go to Cooperative Extension System, type that in, you'll find all the different ones that they have. You'll find some really good information, and most of it is at no charge. They send things out sometimes, but a lot of it online. We have webinars. Has anyone ever done what's called a webinar? How many have heard of a webinar? Okay, well that's basically you're on the web, and instead of me being here live, you can look and laugh. Oh, look at that goofy guy on the screen, you know? You can make all the fun you want at me and I won't hear you. Unless it's a live webinar. Sometimes there's live ones and there's two-way talk. So it's like Skype or FaceTime. How many have heard of Skype, FaceTime? So we do things like that too. So it's off-campus education. So I'm glad you're here to be educated, and we'll have some fun tonight. At least I will. You guys will probably go home terrified thinking, why did I want to have chickens? You don't think so? No, you're going to come home happy, yes.
Got it. I just wanted a little housekeeping. Restrooms are right in here,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, just so you're not stranded. So.
Right. So, anyway, all right, so that's it. Just let's go check it out. And we did have a really neat poultry show and showmanship contest. It was on March 29th. It'll be similar time next year, 2015, so it might be, I don't know what the last Saturday in March is. Is it 30th or the 28th? I don't know how it goes next year. But anyway, if you want to see a lot of neat birds, we had 96 youth and 225 different types, or not different types, but 225 chickens there. And we probably had 16 different breeds represented. So it's pretty cool. So a lot of fun. All right, so what does it take to rear a small poultry flock? It takes a PhD in all of these, or a couple of sessions like this. It's a lot easier. Physiology, that means how things work, what makes a bird tick. And I'm a physiologist, and I like to look at things and say, well, what made that work? Why does it work that way? Ever since I was a kid, I was taking things apart. And then my dad would say, can you get it back together and make it work? Well, I only got 2 or 3 extra parts here and it still works, so I don't know. But taking a chicken apart and making it work again, that's a little different. But we take it apart to find out why does it work that way. Because if you're going to manage something, you need to know why it works the way it does. And that's the physiology. And obviously nutrition is very important. If you don't feed your chickens properly, will they grow? Will they lay eggs? No, you got to feed them right. We'll talk a little bit about that. You will learn a little bit about genetics because that's the type of breed. And why did you select that breed? And how does that get there? Health is very, very important. If your chickens aren't healthy, are you going to get eggs? No. No. You're going to have a problem. And if your chickens aren't healthy, the health department, so you want to keep your chickens healthy. She didn't hear me, but you want to keep it clean, keep it good, and you don't want to get your neighbors upset. If you got chickens in your backyard, the people you don't want upset, don't worry about health department. You don't want to upset your neighbors, because then they'll go to the health department and they'll make a complaint. So, I usually tell people if you have 5 or 6 hens in your backyard, you're going to get about 4, maybe 5, and sometimes 6 eggs a day. What are you going to do with 4, 5, or 6 eggs every day? Well, one thing you can do is you can make your neighbors happy. You can give some eggs to your immediate neighbors, just to them. Okay, actually, you're buying them off is what you're doing, so they keep their mouth shut. They're good eggs. But, now the rest of the people, should you give eggs away? No. Is your feed free?
No.
Did your chickens come to you free? Did you build a coop for nothing? No, it's going to cost you money. So if you have extra eggs and you want to sell them, then you're going to sell them for a good price. Because people are going to say, where'd they come from? My backyard, I know how they were fed, I know how they were reared. They're super fresh, you're going to love them, okay? And you can get some of your money back for that $15, $20 bag of feed, right? That's what you ought to do. Otherwise, if you just give eggs away, what does that tell you about the value of eggs? They have no value. But they have a lot of value. They're very nutritious, very good, so don't just not give it away. Okay, here's the other thing. Food safety is very important. You need to maintain healthier birds so your eggs are healthy for the people consuming them. They don't have salmonella or E. coli. Anybody here like salmonella? No? How about E. coli? You don't like that one either. What bacteria do you like? Oh, yes you do. Do you eat yogurt? Who eats yogurt? Live culture yogurt? What's in it? Lactobacillus acidophilus. Big word. And they're good for your gut, so it's okay. Some are good. All the bacteria out there, not all of them are bad. Some are good, but the bad ones you want to keep away. And that's this Russian sounding word, HACCP. Everyone say HACCP. With a Russian accent. HACCP. All right, you got to take your shirt off and ride a horse and beat your chest. Okay. You've seen cute do that, right? Okay, come on. Anyway. Actually, it's not Russian at all. It means hazard analysis critical control points. Hazard analysis critical control points. What this is, how many have heard of Pillsbury? The little doughboy? Okay. They invented this program for the astronaut program from NASA for space food. Because they wanted to make sure there was no point along the process of making that food that it became adulterated or harmful to those eating it and consuming it. So we have that program now where they test everything from farm to plate, as we call it. And if there's a place somewhere in the line from the farmer's yard to your eating plate that something can happen to that food to make you sick or harm, then the people processing and doing this have to write up and say, okay, how can I prevent that from happening? If something does happen, what am I going to do about it? How can I do a recall? How can I notify people that there's something wrong with our food? So HACCP is an extremely valuable program. And what's really good for astronauts, think about it. How would you like to be up in space and get a case of diarrhea in that funky spacesuit? I don't think so. That always reminds me, how many seen Pepto-Bismol commercials on TV? Okay, you ever seen the crazy one? They got some guy standing out there with an umbrella in the rain. And what does he say? He says, diarrhea is no fun on a day like this. Well, what day is diarrhea fun on? When it's nice and sunny and it dries fast. Okay. Yeah. Diarrhea is never, you don't want that. And that's one of the things that can happen. If you get food poisoning, you get diarrhea. So you want to make sure we don't have that. Engineering, well, if you build a coop, you're going to be an engineer. So you're going to learn something about that. Economics, I just told you about economics. We just told you you have value to your eggs, right? The value is keep your neighbors off your back and sell the rest. So economics. Behavior, how many watch chickens? Are they fun to watch? Sure, they kind of walk around looking goofy all the time, pecking at everything, scratching everything. They're curious, they look at all kinds of things. They eat bugs. You eat bugs? Well, if you're not eating bugs, who is? Get the chicken, eats the bugs, keep your lawn clean, right? Get the ticks out. So, chickens are they're fun to watch. they have amazing behavior. We call them walking lawn ornaments. Yeah, if you have a flock of chickens and watch how they go, and you know, a little bit of noise, and one goes, they all gotta go say, what are you looking at? You know what's even more fun? This is cool. Chickens are so funny. They'll eat spaghetti. You know, just cook some spaghetti, it's kind of flaccid. Take a piece of spaghetti, a long one, put it in the ground by your chickens. One will pick it up, the rest will go chase after it, like, how'd you get that big worm? And I did. They'll fight each other over that hunk of spaghetti. It's just funny. And management is basically how do we rear. That's what we're here tonight to talk about. Proper management. So that all the other issues we just talked about aren't issues. So you have a healthy, good flock, well fed, you're getting plenty of eggs, and your neighbors are happy. Isn't that what our goal is? Very good. All right, so everyone got the handout? Everyone should have a handout that has that checklist? Everyone have a checklist? Did we run out? All right, who didn't get one? Who needs it? Okay, I'll get this one. You get checklist and this. There we go. We got plenty of them. Yours? Who else needs a copy? More, here we go. Basically do this. Take one of each. Find it? There's one on the bottom. Got enough? Okay, good. All right, first thing on the checklist, type of poultry. Well, for you guys, I don't think they're going to allow you to grow meat birds in your backyard. Is that correct? No meat birds? Just layers, right? Just egg layers. Correct? Okay. The meat birds you got to hide in your closet and don't tell her I said so. And no turkeys. All right. So right now it's just bacon. But there's 3 different types of chickens. 3 different distinct types. One is the layer bird that you're going to get, the one that makes eggs. The other is called a meat type bird, or broilers or roasters. And they're totally different. I'll show you pictures how different they look. And then of course there's show birds, ornamental birds. And I'll pass this around so you can see. This is called the American Standard of Perfection. It's got about 300 different breeds in here. And if you notice, there are no photographs. They're all drawings. Why are they drawings? Because there's no such thing as a perfect chicken. But this is what they're trying to look like. So, when they go to these ornamental shows for show birds, the judges look at their chickens that they have, say, how does it look compared to the pictures in here and compared to what the standard should be, how much they weigh, what color the feathers are, stuff, so you can kind of look through this book. Pretty good book, lots of neat breeds in it. Now, out of that, there's only about 20 breeds that are commercially used for production. The rest are just show birds, so lots of show birds. And we have some that are big, we have some that are miniatures, we call bantams, little tiny ones. They're a lot of fun. Now, if you want some bantams, that's fine, but you get these little tiny eggs, so it takes about a half a dozen to make an omelet. So, but they're fun, and they eat about half as much as the big birds eat. But they also get smaller eggs. I mean, you can't get what you pay for it. All right. So that should go on. Next thing, you want to get your birds what we call disease-free stock, or something called the National Poultry Improvement Plan Approved Hatchery. Where do you guys intend on getting your chicks from? Anyone know? Mail order? Or Benedict's?
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. What happens is, if the feed stores where you get your stuff, okay, they will be buying from an NPIP hatchery. They have to have a health certificate. If it comes from out of state, the birds have to have a health certificate with it before they can bring them into state and before they can sell them to you. So, and if you want, you can ask for a copy. See if they'll give you a photocopy of the health certificate if you need it. Okay? That just says that these birds do not have a type of salmonella called Salmonella fallorum. which is not good, okay? Kills chicks, kills hens, not very good. And then there's something called avian influenza. How many have heard of avian influenza? Yeah, it's affecting humans now, isn't it? That's the problem. So we're trying to prevent avian influenza, so they check for that. And then most of them will do certain vaccines. So your birds have a certain vaccine before they get to you. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay? But for your backyard flock, you're only going to get either 1 or 2 vaccines from chicks at a hatchery, and after that, you're on your own. Okay? And the reason why is because vaccines come in 500 and 1,000 dose vials. And if you have 5 chickens, you're not going to buy 500 doses, and you're not going to do the 6 or 7 boosters that go through the whole chicken's life on many of these vaccines. When a commercial chicken flock does it, when you've got 100,000 chickens in one building, you better vaccinate and make sure everything's healthy. And they can afford to do it. They're all there, and that's what they do. But for a backyard flock, if you follow instructions that we're going to talk about, your birds will be healthy without it. Okay? So that's important to make sure you get from a good source. And plan for what's called all-in, all-out flocks. This is part of biosecurity and disease prevention. That means when you buy your 5 hens, or 5 chicks, whatever you're going to raise, how you're going to get them. Okay, you raise them, you keep them for about a year, year and a half, and then you put X's on their eye. I mean, get rid of them. Give them to somebody else. Because you've already named them, and they're your pets, and I know you're probably not going to eat them as stew meat later, so let someone else do it. But take them all out at the same time. Then you can do total clean out of your facilities. A really good biosecurity clean out. Then you go get your next batch of chicks and you start again. Okay? That's the best way to prevent disease from coming in and infecting your birds. Okay? It's called all in, all out. This is what commercial people do. This is what the big guys do. When they buy a flock, they get a whole flock at once, they raise them, they get rid of them, they get a new flock in. Now, there's 2 things you can do. You can get baby chicks and raise them from baby chicks, and then you'll start getting eggs in about 18 to 20 weeks. Or you can buy what's called started pullets. A started pullet is a young hen getting ready to lay eggs. When you buy them at 16, 17, or 18 weeks of age, you only got a couple more weeks before they start laying eggs. And then you can keep them for your year, year and a half, say goodbye to them, clean up, get some more started pullets. And that's probably the easiest way for most of you to do that, unless you have brooding facility. And we'll talk about what it takes to take care of baby chicks. Question? Okay, good. So all in, all out is very good. Before the birds arrive, how many plan on having chickens? For sure. Okay? How many know that they want baby chicks to start with, or how many know that they want adults to start with? Which ones do you want? Very good. Do you have a coop?
Not yet.
But you're going to get one. Okay, and we're going to talk about that you need to have a facility ready before the birds arrive, because you need to make sure the environment is just right for either adults or baby chicks. Okay? Just like, if you go buy a dog, hopefully you don't go to a pet shop and buy a dog on impulse and come home. Don't have a feeder bowl, don't have a cage, don't have a leash, don't. I know some people do that. It's not the smartest thing to do, is it? No, you want to be ready. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure you have a good coop. Make sure if you have baby chicks that you have a heat source. Baby chicks, when they're born, okay, they have so much surface area. Lots of skin, very little inside mass. They lose heat faster than they can produce it. So they need an external source of heat. Okay, they're like lizards. They need an outside source of heat. Until they're about a week or so old, then they can get away from it a little bit more. So we usually get a heat lamp or some sort of source of heat that provides about 95 degrees Fahrenheit around the lamp, so the birds can get warm if they want, or go away and get a little cooler. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And if you have chickens in your adults, even babies, you want what's called litter, something for them so their poop can be absorbed into. Okay? The best litter at this point is pine shavings of some sort. Softwood shavings. Not sawdust, because it gets real dusty. Not big chunks of stuff, but the shavings, okay? And the reason I like that is because wood has a neat property. It absorbs moisture, and it re-releases moisture. And it can be used over and over and over and over and over and over. You get the point? It can be used over and over again. Yes. Now, it may turn brown or black. It's doing its job. As long as it's absorbing moisture, if you have a garden rake, you just rake through your litter a couple times a week. It's kind of like making a compost. And if you build up litter over winter, if you have that much, believe it or not, you say, oh, I should clean it out every week. Oh, it's way too expensive. Unless your birds are sick, there's no reason to clean litter out more than twice a year. And I'll tell you why twice a year, because twice a year you're going to deworm your chickens, because your chickens are probably have access to outside, or you'll bring worms to them. One way or the other, they'll get worms. And we want to deworm them twice a year to keep them healthy and clean. And after deworming each time, that twice a year, that's when you do your total clean out, provided your birds have been healthy in the meantime. If your birds get sick, or if they have parasites that you can't get rid of, then you got to clean out and do that. But other than that, you can build it up. So you start with 4, 5, 6 inches of fresh litter to get started, and then if you have a wet spot, then you can break up the wet spot. If it's really chunky and hard, you take that wet spot out, put it on an outside compost pile or in the garbage, whatever they say you can do. And then you add a little fresh litter in that. And what are you going to do with your garden rake?
Rake it up.
You're going to rake it in. Put a little fresh on top. When they move around, rake it in. And you're going to have nest boxes that your chickens are going to lay their eggs in. You put fresh litter in the nest box. When that gets a little dirty, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to throw it out? Where are you going to throw it? On the floor. And what are you going to do with your rake? Rake it in. Very good. As long as you keep that litter dry, but not dusty. Okay, you want it dry. And you can tell if your litter's too wet. If you can walk in the coop and you smell ammonia, or your eyes are burning, like, ah. If you're way up here and your eyes are burning, just think what the chicks are doing down on the ground. Okay, if you have wet litter, too much moisture in there, that's where the ammonia comes from. When the breakdown in the manure, the ammonia comes up. But if you're properly raking and ventilating, getting air in there, fresh air, get rid of it. Now in the winter, when it's cold, obviously you're going to close it up a little at night. First thing in the morning, you will get a little ammonia smell. That's normal. But if it's still smelling thick ammonia by noon, you got a problem, right? If your litter is really wet, then you got to change it. But other than that, you can let it pile up until we need to clean it out. Okay? Does that sound logical? Plus, it saves money. Those bags of litter are not cheap. Only baby chicks are cheap, 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 cheap. Bad joke, sorry. Okay. All right. Roosts. Now, I'm not going to tell you to go take a branch off your neighbor's tree to make a roost, but that makes a nice roost. Tree branches are good. Think about it, okay? How many of you ever had a hammer or a screwdriver in your hand? You ever put a hammer in your hand or a screwdriver? Do they have square handles? No, they're either oval or round, aren't they? Because you can grip it, okay? A chicken's legs. Yeah, think about it. A chicken, when you lift its legs up, the claws automatically close. That's a relaxed state for them, actually. But it's a locking state. So when they get up on the roost and they kind of pop down, their legs lock so they don't fall off when they're sleeping. That's how they do it. They lock in. It's much easier to lock in on something round that fits their foot than something square that they can't hold on to. And then they're waking up all night trying to balance. So nice round roof. So a clean tree branch with the bark on it. They need that rough surface to hold on to. If it's real slippery, they'll be going in circles like a gymnast. So we don't want them doing giant swings on their roofs like the gymnasts do. All right? So, but keep it clean. And like I say, there's lots of branches around. This is Connecticut. We got lots of trees. Yes?
How thick should it be?
Okay, depending on the size of the bird, okay, on average, an inch, inch and a quarter for most standard layer type birds, okay? And if it's a bantam, then you want about a 3/4 for the miniature chicken. Yeah, so inch to inch and a quarter. You can go as much as inch and a half, but the basic thing is just watch how they grab on it. If it looks like they're having trouble grabbing on it, get a little smaller or get bigger. Yeah, they like that. Now, the other thing, when you put up roots, okay, part of behavior now. So we've been through a little engineering already, right? We've been through a little health already. We're going to go over more. But here, chicken behavior. How many have heard of pecking order? What does that mean? What's a pecking order?
The pecking to get to the beginning.
The top, right. So they have what's called a dominance hierarchy. And the peck order tells who's the alpha, who's number one, who's number two. Now, when they roost, birds, all birds pretty much like this, have a peck order. Okay? The one that has the high roost is the one in charge. So you have to have 2 or 3 levels of roosts. Don't just put one across, because that one will kick half the other ones off for a while. Because it says, I'm in charge, my roost. You sit on the floor. So that, and look in a tree, that's exactly what they do. The highest, the one on the top of the tree is the alpha. Anyone here have a parrot or a parakeet? Okay, parrots, same thing. This is a mistake that I see in a lot of pet shops and other places. Okay, parrot that's dominant is above everyone else. If you have a parrot and it has a roost that's above your eye level, does he think he's in charge? Yes, he does. If he's down here and you look at him, now who's in charge? You are. You better be the alpha in your house. Because if you're not, they're going to get you. So that's one thing on bird behavior. So now you learned some on behavior already. Keep your roost, a couple levels of it. A lot of fun. Again, one nest box for every 4 to 5 hens. A nest box is basically a 1-foot cube with one of the walls taken out. And just have a little lip in the front there, so you can keep your litter in it. But if you have great big, now if you have a Jersey Giant, okay, a 1-foot cube ain't gonna do it, because the Jersey Giant can stand about 2.5, 3 feet tall. And I don't think any of you guys are gonna get Jersey Giants in your backyard. You can put a saddle on and ride them suckers down Main Street, so that's not what you want. So if you're gonna get like, I'll show you some pictures, Barred Rock or something like that, then about a 1-foot cube is just fine. And you want one for every 4 to 5 hens, but you only get 4 or 5, maybe 6 hens. Put 2 or 3 nest boxes in anyway, so they have a choice. Now, here's another thing of behavior. If one goes in a nest box, what do the other ones want to do? Go in the same one. But if you don't supply enough of them, they sit there, where's mine? Where's mine? Ah. You give her one, but you don't give me one. Yeah, put a couple of them in. Doesn't hurt. You know, get a few nest boxes. And in front of the nest box, you put a platform. That's called a perch. A perch is not a roost. A perch is something that they can stand up on, can be flat, or it can be round, but mainly it's something they can get up and kind of walk around on so they get into the nest box. So there's a perch in front of the nest box. A roost is a different area. So I'll show you pictures of roosts and nest boxes and what they look like. Okay? Feeders and waters, they need to be something that's easily cleaned and taken care of. Okay, we'll talk about those. And of course, fresh feed, appropriate for age and type. When you go to the feed stores, they will tell you. You say, okay, here's what I have. I have a layer bird, and she's just getting ready to lay eggs. What should I feed it? I'm going to give you the right feed. Okay? A baby chick does not get the same feed that a layer gets. A layer does not get the same feed that a meat bird gets. A meat bird doesn't necessarily get the same as a turkey gets. And game birds like pheasants and quail and partridge, they get even something different. So they're all slightly different. They need what they need for their age and their type. And they have all these specialty types out there. But the big thing about feed, okay, buy from name brand. If you want quality feed, buy name brand feed. Don't buy Joe's Discount Chicken Feed. You know, $5 a bag for 50 pounds. And you go look at Nutrena, Purina, Blue Seal, whatever, and they're charging $15 to $20 for a bag. And you're going to think, well, gee, $5 a bag, $20 a bag, I'm saving money. No, you're not. You're not going to get eggs, you're not going to get production, because you might even get your birds sick. Because the real cheap feed means they're getting rejects from the big companies to make their feed. Corn is one of the main ingredients in poultry feed. corn and soybean meal. In a wet growing season, corn gets mold that grows on it. Moldy corn has a toxin, it's called aflatoxin. How many have ever heard of aflatoxins? Okay, well, aflatoxins, they may not kill your chickens, but they can throw them out of production, and they can make them act like this. They wobble their heads and they don't know what's going on. It's a neurotoxin. So aflatoxin, so moldy corn, moldy feed. Sometimes you buy cheapo feed, you get what you pay for. So if you're going to have a good flock, feed them good, healthy feed. It's definitely worth it. Now, the other thing I want to tell you right now, you are not going to produce eggs in your backyard cheaper than you can buy them in the store. So don't think you're getting something for nothing here. Okay? Do you have a Big Y down here? Big Y supermarkets?
Yeah.
Remember that? Don't they have those buy one, get two free sales? If you can get 3 dozen eggs for the price of one, do you think you can produce them in your backyard for that price? No, you can't. So don't think it's for saving money. The reason most people do it is because they want to know where their eggs are coming from. It's fresh and it's fun. It's kind of a hobby with benefits, right? That's what it is. Okay, you'll have good fresh eggs, you know where they came from. Now people say, well, I want to know what they're being fed. Well, guess what? The stuff you buy in the bags, it's the same stuff we feed our commercial birds. It's no different. There's no hormones. You can't feed chickens hormones. All these stories about, our chickens are hormone free. Well, if they're hormone free, they're dead because they need hormones to stay alive. They're in their bodies. But we're not adding hormones extra. You think there's hormones in corn? Say yes. You think there's hormones in soybeans? Yes. They're called phytoestrogens. Okay? There are all these things that people worry about. It's in the feed already. We don't add it. It's naturally there. Corn would be dead without hormones. You'd be dead without hormones. Well, you'd be sexless, one of the two. I'm just good at being dead, so what the hell? Right? So, think about it. We don't add, and plus it doesn't work. We can't add, there's nothing we can put in the feed that's a hormone that makes the chicken grow better. Now, antibiotics. No antibiotics are allowed in layer feed unless the birds have a sign of disease. And if they do, then they withdraw the eggs from consumption until there's a withdrawal period. For meat birds, some of the meat birds out there are still being fed some low levels of antibiotics to keep their guts healthy. Okay? But if you look at some of the ads now, look at Purdue. How many seen an ad from Purdue Chicken? Those little cartoons, what does he say? No antibiotics, no hormones, and all that good stuff? Right, okay. Well, pretty much all of them are going to be that way over the next 5 years. Chick-fil-A. How many have heard of Chick-fil-A? The restaurant that sells the chickens, okay. Chick-fil-A basically has already said in 5 years' time, none of the meat birds that they purchase will have any type of antibiotics in their feed unless they were sick and proper withdrawal. And then they'll probably sell those to someone else so they can say none of our chickens had antibiotics. Because people are afraid. Now, whether it's a rational fear or not, it doesn't matter. If you don't want it, you're the consumer, you should get what you want, right? And farmers will produce what you want, just like you're going to produce for your neighbors, the best you can do. So that's what they want. All right, so fresh feed, important. When you get your birds, now a little more help. Pretty simple stuff. Are the birds coughing, sneezing, wheezing, breathing heavy? Are they moving properly? If you clap their hands like this, do they put their heads up and look? If one of them doesn't get up and look, you better find out why isn't it doing it? Is it walking properly? So you want to check all of these things. If you get baby chicks, even from the feed source, sometimes they get something called pasty butt. What does it sound like? It sounds like a plug in their butt, and that's exactly what it is. They have a little bit of diarrhea probably, and then it dried and it formed like a plug in their butt, so they can't poop anymore. Yeah. Now they'll grow, they'll get big, but they ain't the way you want them to get big. And when you do pull the plug on it, I don't want to be around. All right, but so here's the thing you got to do. You got to look at those baby chicks and look at their butt And if it looks like the vent has a little white or greenish kind of pasty stuck on it, don't just pull it out. It's stuck on there like glue. What do you think is going to come with it when you start pulling on it? Yes, the intestines, you'll pull them right out. Don't do it. So what are you going to do? Get it, right, get some warm water, moisten it, soften it. And a soft rag, just wipe it off a little bit till you can see the little vent and a little thing, and you touch it, it should wink at you. If that little vent isn't winking at you, okay, then it's not healthy. Okay, so make sure that that little bird can poop properly. Now, here's the problem. If they get diarrhea, diarrhea is a problem. First of all, we're going to find out what caused it. But secondly, diarrhea causes dehydration. Dehydration kills birds faster than would cause the diarrhea in the first place. So what you want to do is get some electrolyte. Don't give them Gatorade. They're not football players. They're chickens and they're babies. Even adults, if they get diarrhea, you've got to give them electrolyte in so they don't dehydrate. So what you want to do for your small flocks, get something called Pedialyte. How many have heard of Pedialyte? Yeah, for babies. Get the clear Pedialyte. Now the reason I like that is one, it's sterile. So you're not reintroducing any more bacteria. And two, it's physiologic. In other words, it's the right type of electrolyte. You know, if it's good for babies, it's good for the chicks. It really is. So you can give it to them straight. You can give them a little straight Pedialyte, or you can mix it 50-50 in water. But they need to get the electrolytes for a couple of days to help get their fluid back in their body rather than coming out. And then you can figure out why they had diarrhea. But usually by the time you get the Pedialyte in, they're over the problem and they're eating normal and everything's cured again. Okay? Yes?
If you have an adult bird that has that problem, what would you then feed them?
Same thing, Pedialyte.
Pedialyte?
Yeah, because you only have 5 or 6 hens. It's not worth buying an electrolyte pack that makes 50 gallons. Yeah, and then you open it and you use a little bit and then it gets bad, you don't want to know. It's better just get a couple bottles. You can buy the quart bottles of Pedialyte. It works really good. I don't know, you guys use that here in the zoo for rehab work, you know?
Yes.
Most vet clinics do too. They buy big, 5-liter containers of Pedialyte because it's a good rehydrator. So, it's very safe. All right, so that's what you want to do. All right, so check for that. Then you check for external parasites, see if there's any bugs or anything crawling on it, whatever. Okay? So your birds should be healthy. That's the idea. You're checking them before you take them home. It's like, would you buy a used car? No, not from her, but I mean, would you buy wouldn't you check out a used car before you take it home? Yeah, well, you better check out your, quote, used chicken. Because somebody had it before you, right? And you want to make sure they treated it right during transport and everything else. Sometimes in transport, if you buy from mail order, they go through the post office, which means they could be sitting somewhere in cold air for up to 24 hours. And if that happens, they get chilled, and then they get diarrhea, and it gets a problem. So you want to check your birds out as soon as you get them. Make sure they're okay. Okay? Pretty simple. Just it's a visual check. If you need to, sometimes baby chicks, if you don't buy them from Benedict's or local, if you do get them from a hatchery and mail order, give them a 5% sugar solution for a couple hours before you let them eat regular food. So 5% sugar. Okay, that's about the only time you can give them table sugar, because after that they can't handle it. Chickens should not have high levels of sugar, table sugar, sucrose. They don't do very well. Okay? Then we want to make sure we don't have any drafts and stuff in the coop. We'll talk about that in a minute. Okay? The rest of it's just general stuff we've talked about. And at the end we'll talk about what culling is and how to tell if your birds are actually producers. Okay? You want to make sure that your hens are producing and doing a good job. We don't want lazy birds. It's too expensive to feed lazy birds. If they're not producing eggs for you, then they should make stew for you. One of the two, right? Okay. And if it's your pet, make stew for somebody else. I named my chickens Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried. My favorite was McNugget. So, we'll talk about deworming, some of the other stuff. Biosecurity. If your birds have access to outside, then you don't have a lot of biosecurity because every bird, everything that goes through your yard is bringing bacteria, viruses, and disease potential. Now, the one thing that's a good thing is sunlight. Sunlight is your friend. Keep your yard clean as best you can and dry as best you can. And when the sun's out, let the sun get out for a couple hours before you let your birds out. That ultraviolet radiation from the sun is antibacterial, antiviral. It does a pretty good job of sanitizing your yard a little bit before your birds come out. Do not have a bird feeder for wild birds in your yard where your chickens are going to be. If you want to feed wild birds, feed wild birds. Go buy your eggs at the store. Okay? Otherwise, get your chickens and have a clean yard. Because if you're inviting wild birds in, you're inviting squirrels and everything else that want to eat all the seeds, and pretty soon you got a whole menagerie and you got a zoo. Oh, excuse me. You have we don't want to compete. And you don't have a license to have a zoo in your backyard. And these guys work hard to keep a zoo here. So let's not put one in your backyard, all right? Keep your birds healthy. All right. And if your birds do appear sick and you're not sure what to do, don't call me. No, just okay. My email is on these handouts. Okay, you can email me. We have a diagnostic laboratory at the University of Connecticut. Okay, they do free initial necropsy, which is testing of your bird of why it died, because we want to make sure we don't have avian influenza or salmonella in the state. Okay, so either you can bring it up to UConn, or sometimes they have a courier service. But if you call or email me, but I'll give you the phone number now for those who want to know it for the pathobiology laboratory. It's 860-486-3738. That's 860-486-3738. That's the Connecticut Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory. So if your bird dies, this isn't the vet that you're going to say, my bird's sick, and you look at it. No. If you bring a bird to them, it doesn't come back. And it's called necropsy, or you call it autopsy for humans. Yeah, they'll take the bird apart, but they don't put it back together. They want to find out what killed it. Okay, that's the idea. So the initial exam, initial stuff is free, so it's good, and we want that because of what's called sentinel birds. Your birds are sentinels. They tell us if there's other diseases in the state we need to know about. Okay, so use that service. All right, so let's move on. Other stuff you can read about. Choosing a breed. How's the book going? Who's got the book? Neat pictures, huh? Lots of, not pictures, drawings. I gotta say what they are because they're not perfect. But a lot of neat breeds in there. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, so here's a typical backyard flock. A lot of different breeds in there. Okay, we've got a barred rock, we've got some sex-linked reds, we've got some whites. Okay, a bunch of different breeds. The only problem with this one, the grass is just a little bit too long. The grass should be maybe 5 or 6 inches at the most, but if you keep it mowed and fresh grass, if they're going to eat it, they need fresh grass. Old stuff doesn't do good. And if the grass is too long, if the blades are too long, it gets caught in their crop. They get too much in there. You get something called crop impaction. Crop impaction. When that happens, they're eating and eating and eating, but food is not going past that down into their digestive tract. So they can't digest it in their stomach and it doesn't go to their intestines. Okay? So, and you can tell, because they have this big sac hanging off in front of their breast, right off their neck, and that's crop impaction. You can feel sometimes a hard lump in there. Now, you can treat that. You can get mineral oil or warm water, and sometimes you have to use an eyedropper, get it down their throat and massage that crop and try to break that mass off. And you can tell they have it because they're eating, but they seem like they're getting skinnier. And they're not growing, and they're getting lethargic. Okay? Because, and you say, but they're eating food. Yeah, they're eating food, and the crop is really big and full. That's the trouble. The crop is big and full, it's not going well. So keep an eye on that. Pastured birds tend to have crop impaction more than birds that are kept inside. So So you want to keep an eye on it. Everyone clear on that one? Good. So, other than that, it's a pretty healthy looking flock. As long as the predators don't get them, as long as it isn't raining and muddy out, it's not bad. But in the wintertime, when it's nasty, you gotta make sure you have a nice, warm, or decent coop that has good ventilation, not drafty, okay, with enough light to keep them producing eggs. And we'll talk about that. So there's some neat breeds. This is a Chinese breed called a Cochin. This happens to be buff, B-U-F-F, that's the color of buff Cochin. Okay? These are really nice, tame, good birds. They're good for kids for showing and stuff like that. They're not the most prolific egg layers, but they're fun to have just for lawn ornaments and playing with because they're very calm, very docile birds. Okay? Barred Plymouth Rock, that's pretty much one of the standard brown egg type layers in this area. Okay? They're very hardy, very good backyard, and what we call dual purpose hens, in that they're fairly big. They weigh 5, 6, up to 7 pounds sometimes. That means at the end of your laying season, now you have some kind of stew meat. Now, you gotta remember, these birds will be almost 2 years old by that time. Okay? How tough do you think the chicken's gonna be at that time? Do you have a crock pot? So here's what I tell people to do. You get these old hens like this, and you get the meat off of it, and you put it in the crock pot. And you cook it for 3 or 4 days. You take it out and feed it to your dog. No, just kidding. No, actually, it's pretty good. We actually have specialty restaurants that sometimes buy the older hens because there's lots of flavor to them, but they're very chewy. So they have learned how to basically soften them and make it much more palatable. But you know, you gotta be good. So moist cooking, that's what the crock pot does. But they make really good soups and stews. Campbell's soup, many years ago, about 20 or 25 years ago, they stopped. But they used to use spent hens, old hens, and that's what they had, the little chunks of white meat, as they called it, okay? You know, the 3 pieces in a can of chicken noodle soup. Just enough to call it chicken noodle. And now they actually they have contract for regular meat birds, and they get a little more meat in their stuff, and it's their steady supply. So now a lot of the old hens, they go in for either specialty market or pet food. They use them, and when they say there's chicken in your thing, sometimes it's old hen meat. But it's still good. It's just chewing. Your dogs don't mind because they don't chew anything anyway. They just bite it, swallow it, and digest it. All right. Colombian Wyandotte, these are good. These guys, I love these guys. They can't see where they're going. They're the sheepdog of the chicken business. They want to, where am I? Where am I? Are you there? Where's my feed? Where's my nest box? They got this big crest on them. They're pretty neat. These are good birds too. These black Australorps. Again, they're about 6, 7 pounds. They're beautiful chickens. They're pretty well. Actually, it was a black Australorp that won the show this year. Okay, and the poultry show for students. It was really good. Really nice looking birds. So, a lot of fun. These are interesting birds. Look at this one. Look at this. Look at this. Tell me what you see different. What's missing? The tail. Yeah, they took it from here and put it up here. Like a toupee. All right. So this is a South American breed. It's called the Araucana. The Araucana breed, they lay the blue-green colored eggs that sometimes you see. They call them Easter eggs. Okay? So look at the color of their shanks. It's a different color. What they did is they took this bird and they crossed with some American-type breeds and came up with what's called the Americana, which has gray legs instead of the orangey color. It has a tail. Instead of having the tufts, it has a beard. So it's a little different genetics. There is the genetics showing how different they're. But they lay blue-green eggs. Actually, they lay anywhere from a pastel, kind of almost a pink color, some of them, all the way to a deep, dark blue-green. So
Who eats them? Who eats those colored eggs?
a lot of people do. They want them. They call them Easter eggers. That's a side market. As a matter of fact, Whole Food stores, Whole Foods, how many have heard of Whole Foods? Okay, Whole Foods, at least up in our neck of the woods, we have growers that grow these birds strictly for the blue-green eggs, and they sell them for about, I think it's $6 a half dozen.
Wow.
Buck an egg. Yes. Well, you need it because they don't produce that many eggs. I mean, these aren't super egg producers like Leghorn or something. They're pretty good, but you know, it costs a lot to feed them. So by the time you sell them, and what they do is you have to have 50 birds to get started. You have to have 50 of them, so you have to have a farm. So you're not going to do this in your backyard, but then they sell them to Whole Foods, and Whole Foods comes out. So we have a couple producers. Now, there's another breed in there. If you look in the book, it's called the Moran, M-A-R-A-N. Okay? And they have a couple different breeds. One's called the Copper Moran, the other's called a Cocoa Moran. They have eggs that are so dark brown, they're like chocolate. And they call them chocolate eggs. Now, the same guy, he and his wife have a bunch of these. They're selling at Whole Foods. He also has these Copper Morans. He sold half dozens. This is ridiculous. He was selling half dozen cartons for $39.
Wow.
People were paying $39 for half dozen Copper Moran eggs because they're so unique and different. And these are people with more money than brains. And we say, how many dozen you want? We'll sell them to you. Like I say, if there's a consumer and that's what they want, we will supply it for them. You got to meet the demand. And Whole Foods is a yuppie store for people with lots of money, right? And think they're getting better food. And let them think that all they want, because the small farmer in Connecticut needs the income. We can't compete with the Midwest. We don't have the acreage. We don't have the numbers. But we have the population here. We got lots of people in Boston, lots of people in New York City, New Haven, you guys here in Bridgeport. Think about it. A lot of people, and a few of them actually have some money.
What are the most nutritional or best tasting eggs?
They're all about the same. Okay, let's go back to this. What's the purpose of an egg?
Eat it.
No, what's the purpose of an
There's
egg?
more chicken. Create
To
chicken.
create another chicken. It's the nutrients to develop an embryo. So if there's a wide variation in nutrients, what do you think that'll do to growing embryos? It'll change. They may not be nourished properly. So there's not that much variation. Now, we can change some of the things in an egg. The omega-6 fatty acid, we can change the color of the yolk real easy. That's just pigment. Okay, I can make a real deep yellow, almost orange-looking yolk, or I can make it pale silver. And it doesn't change the nutritional quality of the egg. It's just color. It's carotenoid, xanthophyll. So, everybody tries to con the consumer into all these different things. Like, you gotta have a nice, dark yellow yolk, otherwise it isn't healthy. It's pigment. The more grass they eat, the yellower it's going to be. We actually put alfalfa meal, or if you've heard Frank Purdue commercials, he used to talk about marigold. We didn't talk about putting marigold into his feed so his chickens are nice yellow skin, because yellow skin's a healthier bird. BS. It's not any healthier, it's just yellow. It's a pigment. If the birds weren't healthy, they couldn't be selling them in the first place. So the nutritional quality of eggs is pretty much all the same. The difference is how much. And obviously, a jumbo egg has more nutrients than a kiwi egg. And there's about a 5 to maybe sometimes 8% difference in fat because of the way we're feeding them. Because they want for you to have more omega-3s, like it's going to make a difference. Unless you're eating 4 or 5 eggs a day, you better go get an omega-3 tablet and eat that if you're really worried about omega-3s, because you're going to have to eat too many eggs to get the same equivalent, right? So you have to kind of think logical beyond this and say it's a marketing scheme. Free range, cage-free, organic, you name it. This is that and this. I mean, every time they add another adverb to it, it's another bucket dozen. So it isn't, you know, eggs are eggs. Yes, there are some differences in flavor, and you're going to taste them. If you have eggs in the backyard from chickens eating bugs, eating grass, it's going to have a different flavor. Nutritionally, not that much different, because if the hen made an egg totally different nutritionally, then she wouldn't have embryos to develop and chicks to have. Does that seem logical? Now let's think about it. Why do we eat eggs then? Because it's almost perfect nutrient for us. So that, get the Facts or Fiction book. If you didn't get one, make sure you get one. Facts or Fiction. Talks a lot of stuff about the egg and misconceptions about it. But figure, does a chicken have skin?
Yes.
Does a chicken have eyes? Does it have a brain? Kind of. Sometimes you wonder. Does it have a nervous system? Does it have muscles? Okay, now, do you have skin? Do you have eyes? Do you have muscles? Mine are bigger than yours. Anyway. Of course. The only difference is the form they came in, but the nutrients required are about the same. So, if an egg can make a baby chick, what can it do for you? Make you a baby chick. No, just kidding. No, it gives you the nutrients you need. And when we talk about protein, okay, people worry about how much protein something is. Well, my belt is very high in protein. How nutritious is it? It's not very nutritious. It's about 50% protein, which sounds really good until you try to eat it, because there's a lot of collagen protein in here. It makes it bind and hold together. And it's pretty hard to chew and break down and make any nutrient value of it. What's important is what makes up a protein. Does anyone know what proteins are made of? Amino acids, exactly. Amino acids. What's important is the balance of amino acids in your proteins. And the balance of amino acids in an egg is the same as we need. It's in the right proportions that we need too. That's why it's so good. The only thing really missing in an egg is the vitamin C. A little extra vitamin C. Chickens can make vitamin C. Anyone know the other name for vitamin C? Official? Ascorbic acid. God, it sounds horrible. If you read that on a package, my food had ascorbic acid. I ain't eating that stuff. It's going to acid. It's going to burn me out. Yeah. Once you understand what these things really mean, you find out it's not so bad. It's orange juice. Yeah, vitamin C. Very good. But chickens make their own, so it's low. So you have a glass of orange juice or some of the vitamin C, and have a couple eggs. You have a balance of nutrients. Not the full volume that you need, but a balance of nutrients. And that's what's important. That's why eggs are so good. And for the price of eggs, where are you going to get that same nutrient quality for that price? You can't get it anywhere else. That's the least expensive, not cheap. Cheap means poor quality. But least expensive protein you can buy, basically, are eggs. Plus, you can store them in your fridge for up to 30, 40, 50 days, keep them cold. You can hard boil them. You can put them in baked goods. You can eat them, well, if your own backyard hens and you know they'll have salmonella, be careful how many you eat raw, but you should cook your eggs. But if you can eat raw eggs, make sure you know where they come from and they're super fresh. And they've been cold right from the start. Okay? Anyway, so different breeds. Lots of good breeds out there anyhow. These are all good for backyard flocks. Okay? Now, the most common breed in the United States right now are these, called single-combed white leghorns. How many seen the cartoons when you're a kid? Foghorn, leghorn? I say, boy, that's a chicken. And the chicken hawk looks at the dog, that's a chicken? Okay, anyway. But, so this is it. And like I say, we have about 330 million people in the United States. We have just about 330 million hens laying eggs in the United States. About 35 million of those hens are breeders just to make replacements for the other chickens we have out there. Okay? So we have about 295 million laying hens producing eggs that you can get at the supermarket in various places or baked goods or whatever. That's a lot of eggs, a lot of chickens. It's a big industry out there. Okay? Most of those are raised in cages. And people think, oh, that's mean and nasty, put them poor chickens in a cage. Well, let's think about something for a minute. People say, well, they're all stressed out. And they're pumping hormones into them. And they're pumping drugs into them. And that's how we get, you can't do that, folks. It just don't work. If the hen was distressed, do you think she would lay eggs?
No.
How well do you do under stress? You perform at your top and your best? Okay, these hens can lay about 300 eggs a year. 365 days. They get a couple weeks vacation every year, paid with health insurance. So they get a little time off, but 300 eggs. You can't get that out of a chicken that's distressed. The first thing that goes, if we go in and mess up with the chicken, we take water away for 1 day, you're going to lose eggs for up to 6 days. You go without water 1 day for a hen, you could lose eggs for up to 6 days. Or you'll get soft-shelled or bad eggs coming out. The reason why, most of the egg is water. About 70% of that weight is water weight. So they got to have water. And they're going to stay alive rather than make another egg. Self-preservation over reproduction. So take feed away for a couple of days, and we cause them to stop laying for a long time, and we call that molting. We still give them water, but we don't let them have feed. Just like migratory birds that molt, they'll get a bunch of fat built up on them, then they migrate, and they use up all that fat, and they don't usually eat much while they're migrating, because they're going to lose that body fat. Same thing with hens. They'll build up body fat over a period of time, and they need to take a rest and use up that body fat so they have room for the egg in there. Okay? That's one of the things we do. Lots of them. So now we have the brown egg layers. Excuse me, a lot of them now, for commercial, we have something called a black sex link. So this is a Rhode Island red and a barred rock. Now we're going to have a little sex education and genetics all rolled into one. Okay? How do you know if your baby chick is a little boy or a little girl? Well, they're neither. They're chickens. So say, is it a male or a female? I hate when people say, is it a boy or a girl? It's not a boy. Boys are humans. Girls are humans. Animals are animals. Call them what they're supposed to be. It's a male chick or okay? Either a young, yep, a hen or a rooster, okay? But it's either male or female. How do you know if it's a male or female at hatch? They have to look in that little vent. And they have to look for this little rudimentary penis on the male and the lack of that little bump in the female. Now, I've been sexing chickens for almost 40 years. And I'm getting really, really good at it now. I'm about 50% accurate. I don't know how those guys do it so well. It takes training to be able to tell in that little baby chick vent 100% of the time, or 95% of the time, which ones are which. Even those guys mess up 5%. But they're pretty good. Yes?
Where do I learn how to do that?
How to vent sex?
Yeah.
Online. Or if you want, I can send you a pamphlet. Why don't you email me,
Okay.
and I will send it. But it's a little nub that you're looking for in the corpora diem to see, is it there? And I don't know. And I think I'm pretty good at seeing. Actually, I was about 65% accurate. But we don't do much of that because now we have a better way of doing it. We use genetics. We use genetics to tell us males and females immediately. And that's how this works, okay? This trait, this barring trait on that hen is called a sex-linked trait. It's carried through her egg and her chromosomes and just her sex cells, okay? So that's a neat trait. Now, interesting. In humans, who determines the sex of the offspring in humans? The males and the females? The males, X and Y, right? Okay. Who determines the sex of the offspring in chickens? I wouldn't ask you if it was the same, would I? How many say female? Very good. Yes, it's the female. So the male, his sex chromosomes, they're not X and Y's. We call them Z's and W's. The female is the ZW. The males are ZZ. And here's how I remember this. There's a little old rock band from Texas called ZZ Top. So when I think of ZZ Top, I remember these guys with long beards. Well, he's got his long beard there, so that's how I remember. Males are ZZ, she's a ZW. Now, interesting. The W chromosome that she can pass on to her daughters only carries information that says, I'm a female. That's it, no other traits. But the Z chromosome carries lots of different traits. And this barring pattern is one of them. Fast or slow feathering is another. Some other color patterns or other things that can be passed on through the Z chromosome. So think about it. She is a barred rock. Her Z chromosome carries the barring pattern. This is a Rhododendron red. His Z chromosomes obviously do not carry the barring pattern because it's a dominant trait and you would see it. So when they mate, which offspring are going to have the barring trait, males or females? How many said female? Want to try again? Her Z, she can only pass a Z on to her male offspring. She passes her W on to her female offspring. And her W carries nothing. And his carries golden or black. So Z from her, W from her, Z from him, W from her creates a black sex-linked female. The Z from her, which is a dominant, and his Z, which is recessive, is a barring trait. And now you have a baby chick with a little white spot on top of its head, just like mine. I knew when I was born that I was a boy. I wasn't a cockerel, because that's a chicken. But anyway, yeah, so that's called sex-linked trait. We have other ones, so immediately, I don't have to look at a little bit anymore. I can look at the top of their head. As long as I'm not a blind sexer, I can tell exactly which ones are which, right? Pretty simple. So anyway, it's kind of fun to know. So you guys, when you order chickens, you should be able to get, if you want all females, you should get all females, because we can do that today. There's no reason for you to get 4 females and a rooster. And in town, no roosters are allowed. No cock-a-doodle-doos. Can a hen crow?
Yes.
Yes, a hen can crow. Does she have the desire to crow?
No.
Not necessarily, until they start getting older. And when they go through what I call chicken menopause, some of those hens do crow. Yeah, they get a little weird. They stop laying eggs. What can I say? Alright, so again, lots of different colors. Meat birds, we're going to go over real quick because you guys can't grow meat birds, but this is typical backyard meat bird flock, nice little roasters. We can actually grow these birds to 5 pounds live weight in about 6 weeks.
Why can't we grow
Probably because you don't have a place to process them. And I don't think they want home process. I don't know. What's your law on that? What's your rule in here? Is it against meat birds or just for laying hens? Anyone know?
Yeah. No meat first.
No meat birds. Okay. And it's probably because they don't want people processing and getting stuff all over the place at home. So, but who knows? In the future, give it time. Once they realize you guys are good managers of your birds and you're responsible, maybe they'll let you start growing meat birds. Otherwise, find someone with a friendly farm nearby and grow the birds there. Okay? But they grow really fast. And this white meat bird was actually invented here in Connecticut, up in Glastonbury, Connecticut, a company called Arbor Acres, in the late 1940s, early 1950s. All the other meat birds used to look like these. Those used to be meat birds. They just fattened up an old hen. They took these type birds, barred rock, and Cornish. They were slow growing, but you know, by 25 weeks, you had 4 or 5 pounds on them. 6 weeks, 5 pounds on our meat birds now. Very, very efficient, very fast growing. Okay, so interesting. These are breeders. When they mate, that special male and that special female, their offspring are the meat birds we grow. These aren't really the meat birds. The meat birds grow, they're kind of like that. You saw the other ones. But these are the breeders that make them. So, I said we have about 300 and something million laying hens, right? How many meat birds do you think were raised commercially in the United States last year? How many meat birds do you think we raised?
Billion.
Getting closer. Who said 1 billion? Keep going.
Wow.
Keep going.
Trillion?
5 billion?
Almost. Getting closer.
Okay, 10 billion?
Zillion?
Just a little under that. 8.5 billion. 8.5 billion little meat birds were grown commercially. And we don't know how many were grown in backyards and closets and basements and attics and in the space station. And yeah, it's a lot. And that's 1/5 the world supply.
Wow.
A little over 40 billion, 40 billion meat birds were raised in the world last year. What does that tell you about chicken in people's diets? It's a big thing, isn't it? Lots of chicken. Go to fast food restaurants. Are there any that don't have chicken? It's pretty hard to find one that doesn't have chicken. Some McDonald's sell more chicken than beef. Look at all the products there. Or they sell chicken products, go in the morning. What do you get from their McDonald's in the morning? Egg McMuffin. Now the white egg, whatever the heck it is, you know? Egg white, yeah, whatever the deal is now. If you're gonna do that, might as well just go buy egg beaters, because that's what egg beaters are. It's just egg white with a little food coloring in it. So, hey, have fun with it. Do it yourself. Anyway, colored birds. It's funny, we're going full circle. Some people want to raise colored birds again, when we finally went through the whole thing getting white birds. Forget it. So I'm not going to get into that because you guys are going to raise them. I'm just saying there's lots of different types of meat birds out there. Let's talk about needs of your birds, because this is what you really can learn. They need fresh feed, water, air, light and darkness. For a bird to be healthy, it needs a minimum of 4 hours of darkness every night.
4 hours?
A minimum of 4 hours. Minimum. Huh? No. Because you can just raise them on whatever's outside. Now, if you're in Alaska, you get 24 hours of darkness or 24 hours of light sometimes. So then we supplement so they get some of that break time. But generally for laying hens, okay, here's what you're going to do. If you get baby chicks, you don't want them exposed to increasing day length at the time that, you know, just before they get into egg production yet. You don't want that too early. So you guys, generally people buy chicks in the spring, okay? So for the first couple of weeks, they're seeing increasing hours of day length, right? Until when?
June 21st.
June 21st, 22nd. And then it starts decreasing a little bit again, doesn't it? Which is okay. Because now by the time they're about 15 weeks, they're seeing low levels of light outside. Now you can stimulate them, bring them back up to a 16-hour day, and that'll make them come into egg laying. And if you maintain 16 hours of light every day, they'll keep laying eggs throughout that period. So 16 hours of light, 8 hours of darkness. 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. The reason I want that, 5 a.m. is just before sunup, 9 p.m. after sundown, any time of year. They will never see a change at the beginning or the end of their day, and most of their eggs will be laid before noon. So it makes it easier for you. Okay? So lights on at 5 a.m., you can shut them off when daylight's out. So get a timer, and then about a half hour to 40 minutes before dark, have the lights come back on, they go off at 9 p.m. Do that from the time you see their first egg. So if you get young birds that aren't laying yet, you get baby chicks, just keep them on low hours of light. Okay, 8 to 10 hours of light is fine, or natural lighting. And then when you want them to start laying, you bring them up. And the best way to do it when you see their first egg, okay, that's when you're going to do two things. When you see the first egg, one, you're going to change them from grower feed, from a pullet grower feed, to your layer feed. So when you see the first egg from any bird in your flock, not from all of them, but the first little egg you see, now you're going to switch your whole flock over from grower feed to your layer feed. There's a difference in protein, but the biggest thing is the difference in calcium. Your layer feed has about 4% calcium in it to make good eggshells. If you give a baby chick 4% calcium in their diet, they're gonna have kidney problems. So you wanna make sure layer feed's just for layers, grower and starter just for your starter chicks, okay? We'll get more on feed in a minute. So, but the darkness and light's important, and of course thermal environment, and you wanna protect your birds, okay, from predators. So if you have your birds outside in a run or something, make sure it's fenced in if you're not out there watching them. Otherwise, you should be watching your birds when they're outside the coop. And make sure your coop is predator proof. Okay? And we don't get hurt. Feeders, very important. Okay? Now, you can use a feeder like this for a week or so with your baby chicks, but after that, it's pretty hard to use because you're supposed to raise the feeder up so the lip here, the edge of the feeder, is level with the flat of their back as they grow. And it's kind of hard to raise this up unless you put bricks or something underneath and then they tip it over, it's a problem. A hanging feeder of this type, either plastic or metal, you can put a lot of feed in it, you don't have to sit there and worry about it every day, and you can raise it up off the ground as much as you need, okay, so it's level with the flat of their back. And the reason for that, there's a couple things. One is that it makes them work a little bit for their feed, so they're not just throwing it all over. And two, they don't back up and make a deposit that they shouldn't make into their feeder. Now you're thinking, well wait, they're pecking at the ground. Yeah, the ground isn't full of nutrients. It's litter and poop that's already been out, and it's kind of lower on the nutrients the bugs need. They'd rather have the fresh feed. You poop and feed, now it's got moisture, and it's got all the nutrients the bugs love, so they grow faster, and now you get a bird that may be sick, but it's got poopy feed. So keep your feed clean. Don't let them play in it. If you have an outside feeder, that's what these are. Even with this type, I like to put a cover over these if you can anyway, because birds tend to want to jump up and roost down here. And then they make deposits on top, and that's not good. It's not a bank. Tell them we only want withdrawals, not deposits. Okay? Waterers. A lot of people have an open type waterer, some sort of dish or pan. I don't like that. It gets dirty real easy and it's not healthy for the birds. Okay? You have to keep it clean. You get poop in it, you get litter in it, you get everything else in it. It's not good. Birds can learn to drink off a nipple waterer very easy. And you can build a nipple bucket like this or like this. 4 nipples on it. Okay?
Can you buy those nipples?
You can buy the nipples. There's a company called FarmTech, FarmTek. FarmTech. It's online. They will sell nipples or kits to even make the buckets. But you can get, you want to get a food grade bucket if you can. Don't get an old plaster bucket or something. You can go to bakeries and stuff like that, or your Big Y, place like that. Sometimes they get stuff in 5-gallon buckets that are food grade buckets. You wash it out, okay, and you can punch holes for the nipples. Okay, I think it's a 3/8 drill. They'll tell you what the nipple you get. Okay, and it's a low pressure system. The neat thing about this one, now this guy has it hooked up to a hose to a low pressure water source, so you can turn it on and fill up when he needs to. And that's the easy way of doing it. In the wintertime, you can put like a fish tank immersion heater into the water to keep the water from freezing. The nice thing about it, it is a clean source. Now, the other reason I like it, besides being clean, how many have ever seen a chicken drink water from an open source? What do they do? How do they drink water? Like from, not from this, but let's back up. So like from this. If they're drinking water out of that, how do they do it? They put their head in and then what? They put their head up, don't they? They're not looking at the sky to see if someone's going to come and steal their water. They're doing it for 2 reasons. One, they do not swallow. They don't have a normal swallowing reflex. So they use gravity to help water go down. And 2, chickens don't suck. Well, some people say my chickens suck, but no. They cannot create vacuum in their mouth. If you, how many of you have ever looked at a gift chicken in their mouth? Well, they don't lift, they have a beak, but up on the roof of their mouth they have a slit, and they have little ridges. Now the slit is called a cleft palate. It's on purpose. that slit goes right up to the little nose things, the little nares on their beak. Unless they can poke off their nares, they can't create vacuum because it just sucks them through their nose. So they can't suck water up. So the best way, the most natural way, is to then put their head up, let the water dribble down, because their head's up anyway and it dribbles down. That's natural. So they'll drink that way. We teach baby chicks. I don't use any open water source on my baby chicks at Yukon. We teach them to nipples right off the bat. We put them up there, we trip the nipple with them, with their beak, they learn to drink it, and pretty soon, if you've got, for us, we'll get 100 meat birds at a time, we get 500 layers at a time. I teach 10% of them, basically, how to drink, they teach the rest. Because they mimic each other. Once one learns, they'll all learn, but basically get 10 or 15% of your flock to learn it, the rest will learn it. So they trip the nipple, and they're much healthier. The other thing is they drink about 5% more water through a nipple system than they will through the open source. So you can make them fairly inexpensively and cheap, like I say. The only thing I do is if you get a bucket, you get the lid on it, you have to poke a little hole up near the lid. Because if you put the lid on tight, you get vacuum in there and the water won't come out. So you got to make sure you have a little air hole to let air in so the water will drip down. But you can see, if you go online for nipple drinkers for baby chicks, there's nipple drinkers for chickens online. You're going to see all kinds of different things. They're all pretty much the same thing. Some of them are on pipes, some of them are in buckets. For you guys, for 4 or 5 hens, the best way to do is make the bucket, make a hanger, and just fill it and wash your bucket once a week or once every other week, whatever. You want to make sure you get scum in there. Clean it out. You can take a little chlorine solution, slush it in there, wipe it out. It's super clean. The nipples will stay clean and good. And you have healthy birds.
If you get a giant egg, every once in a while you get like a giant, is that because they drink more water?
Part of it, and it's part of it because the protein and fat in their diet. The egg, the size of the egg is directly related to the size of the yolk. And the yolk is where most of the fat is. It's got protein and everything else in it. But so protein and fat combination can change. If they get too much of it, they can make much bigger yolks. And you want to be careful you don't over-protein a young bird because your butt isn't big enough for the egg to come out.
Oh,
And we'll talk about egg bound in a few minutes. Okay, that's the problem. If they lay a super egg, it's too big. Okay, so nipple water is very important. Heat source. If you got baby chicks, you need a heat source. Okay? Now, they used to use like a 100-watt incandescent light bulb with a little reflector for a couple of chicks in a cardboard box. You just got to be careful, don't start something on fire. Okay? I prefer the red heat lamps, infrared heat lamps, rather than the bright white ones. Okay, this is pretty bright, and they see very well in the red, but it's not as intense on their eyes and doesn't hurt them as much. Bright white light can hurt their eyes as much as ours can. So they've got these really bright white heat lamps, and they're in there all day long. It's like, man, where's my sunglasses? You know what I mean? So I like this. Even better would be to get one of these infrared heaters like this, electric infrared rod heater. It doesn't put light out, it puts heat out. That way you can control the light environment too. And it just keeps the bird and not everything around it, and less problems with fire. Now, here's the other thing. When you get a heat lamp and you hang it in your coop, use chain. Don't use string, don't use rope, don't use twine, and heaven forbid, don't use yarn. Let me tell you a true story about yarn and a heat lamp. When my daughters were young in grade school, they did the chick growing project in the grade school. So they have some baby chicks, and they got a big Rubbermaid tub, and a nice red heat lamp, kind of like this, okay? And the chicks were hatching, so I was there for hatch day and talking about them, where you're looking at the chicks and make sure they're healthy, and got the litter in the tub, she got the heat lamp, and I asked the teacher, okay, you got the heat lamp, where's your chain? Oh, gee, I forgot the chain at home. I said, well, these chicks are going to get cold. We got to put the heat lamp on. Do we have any rope that we can use temporarily in the school? No. Well, what do we got? We can hold this heat lamp up, and we have the bar for it and everything ready for it, but nothing to hang it from. I wasn't just gonna hang it from the cord, because the cord wasn't gonna fit where they needed. It was just all kinds of nightmare problems. So she said, oh wait, the home ec, they got a whole bunch of yarn. So they made a little rope out of yarn. And I said, okay, how far away do you live from here? Oh, 10, 15 minutes at the most. Okay, so 10, 15 minutes going there. 10 or 15 minutes piddling around with your kids and then getting your chain, getting back in your car. So within an hour you'll be back, right? Yep. So okay, this should hold for an hour. So we hooked up something, made like a little rope out of that yarn that she had. Didn't have enough, but just enough to hold it up there. You think she came back in an hour?
No.
I wouldn't be telling you a story if she did, would I? No, so she forgot. The next morning at 6:30, the fire department's at the school. There wasn't a fire per se. It was melting Rubbermaid and melting chicken. Oh yeah, because that cord kept stretching and stretching and stretching all night, and the heat lamp just went down real close, started melting the Rubbermaid tub, got right down and cooked the chicken. So it was a pretty bad experience. So my name was Mud, but her name was Colonel Sanders. The teachers teased her the rest of the school year because she cooked them chickens. But it was a lesson learned not to trust. I'm a teacher, so don't trust teachers. No. Not to leave until you know things are right. I shouldn't have left. It was my fault for not staying there and trusting she'd come back. But she was a good person. She didn't do it on purpose. You know, she had a situation when she got home, and then, you forget things, right? It happens. So, but it was a good learning for me, and from then on, we make sure people have change. Housing, protection from elements and predators, dry. Can you all say this? Dry and draft free. Dry and draft free. Good. What's a draft?
Freeze.
Well, air could be ventilated air. What's the difference between ventilation and draft?
Motion.
Draft where it doesn't belong.
Draft is where air doesn't belong. It's coming in when you don't want it to come in and where you don't want it to be. What's ventilation?
Control it.
Say it loud.
You can control it.
You can control. It is controlled airflow, where you want the air to be. You want fresh air in your coop. So you can put windows crisscross and get fresh air moving across. But for baby chicks, you don't want baby chicks to have a draft on them, especially when it's cool out. Okay? Like I said, the baby chick is born, it doesn't have enough body heat, so it needs it from the environment. So you start at about 95 degrees and drop 5 degrees a week. But you don't need a thermometer. You need a heat lamp and you need chicks, but you don't need a thermometer. Why don't you need a thermometer? Because your chicks are going to tell you if they're hot or cold. How many believe me? Boy, you guys are suckers. Not just kidding. All right. Let's say this is the heat lamp. It's right here. Okay? And I'm a baby chick under the heat lamp. Now I'm going like this under the heat lamp. What's wrong?
Cold.
I'm too cold. I'm shivering. I'm cold. What are you going to do with the heat lamp?
Lower it.
Lower it a little bit. Okay, now you lowered it. Now I'm over here to the side going. No, he just ran 20 miles and he's wore out. It's too hot. You can't get away from the heat. And if they're all spread out evenly, it's just right. The birds should be spread out nice and even around. Some will like in here. How many think it's a little cool in here tonight? How many think it's a little hot in here tonight? You see? Different. Chicks are all different too. So just watch your baby chicks. That's behavior again. Watch them. They will tell you. Adult chickens will tell you the same thing. If they're cold, they huddle up. If they're too hot, they're panting and got their wings out. Watch the birds for behavior to tell them what they want you to know. Okay? So here's the question now. This is interesting. So here's the heat lamp. All the chicks are huddled right over here. What's wrong? No, they're not spread out huddled. They're all in one spot. It's a draft. Where's the draft coming from? What other side? So I mean over here? So coming from here across? Good. Why? Okay, you're right. Why are the chicks over here? The draft's over here. What is the draft doing? It's pushing the heat over there. They're looking for the heat. The air is pushing the water.